Hello, team. Welcome to another Lion War cast. Our two players today, valithor2, aka the Solstice, aka valithor, aka usually 5 airports at some point, is in blue versus Collier in red. Collier's gone on the right side of the map. Valithor's gone on the left side of the map. So we can kind of see, like, very quickly, this is a land dominant map. As for the gases, Collier started in a great spot. I think actually this might actually be a familiar map. I feel like I've played maybe even this recently, but it is a lot of gases, and I like this starting position being in all these mountains. Collier's going for 2 factories and 2 airports. So far, it's helicopters out of the airports, SAMs out of one of the factories. We can see what valithor is going to do. 2 airports with strikers immediately and 2 barracks in the top. This is the post-patch replay, like, or rather a replay from after the patch was released. So there's a lot of changes in the game. If you know, like, the infantry generally being like quicker is the biggest change. There's not really a good place to kind of look for all the info except for on the Discord. I think a few videos ago on the channel there was one talking about a new patch, and that this is the result of that. So it was a little bit of tweaking the infantry go quicker. Let's see what's going on. No one has figured out the game by this point, though. Still helicopters from Collier and Valthor's going for. I mean, we can see, like, on the lines what the plan is, and really just capping all of this with a safety factory in the back. Economy is 320 for Valthor and 320 for Collier. So this, like, we can, for sure. I played on this map today. There's 3 trade routes in the top. So this is each trade route, each one of these dotted lines is worth 10 territories. So that's actually a decent amount of economy for Collier, and Collier has 2 cities in the back. I also hope that's how to pronounce Collier. I'm giving like a French twist. 3 cities on the left side, rather 4 cities for Valithor. So that is also, so that's like 40 tiles worth of territory in all these cities, because the city is worth 10 tiles, as in, like, each of these individual tiles. But there are 30 up here for Collier in 2 cities, so that's 50 total. So it's, I mean, the map is pretty evenly split. We can just see who's making advantage of infantry capping. 368 income for Valthor, 344 for Collier. So Collier is a little bit behind. It's not a huge deal. It is 2 strikers and 2 factories still of sand production. I like this from Collier because Valthor is certainly known as a huge air player. And SAMs are going to be the only, like, you need SAMs to deal with air. Potentially interceptors maybe, but always going to need at least a few SAMs. And at this point, if Collier, we can see, like, their view, right? There's nothing around. Really, you have, like, a lot of time. You feel very safe, relatively so. I mean, the same thing with Valthor, right? Like, Valthor hasn't made contact yet, hasn't seen each other, so you kind of know that your opponent spawned on the other side of the map. At least that would be the guess, right? There's no way someone spawned in the bottom down here. These are really the 2 locations that people would generally go. Let's see the economy again. 452 for Valthor and 428 for Collier. So Valthor still maintaining a little bit of a lead. The 4th strikers for Collier are coming out, and I guess they are slightly behind Valthor's. Not that it really matters. 2 factories in the back for Valthor, and so far no gas, which is totally fine because these planes aren't moving. I do wonder where is the gas for Valthor on this side of the map. It surely can't be this. Yeah, okay, there's one up north. It's kind of interesting though. I wonder if Valthor's going to have to build a power plant. Because, in, like, by the time this gas is capped, it's actually, the planes might want to be flying. I'm interested to see how that develops. 500 income even for Valthor now, 476 for Collier. So Collier's keeping up. It's still just like a 25 gap. We can check out Collier's lines for a second. It's very interesting the different stylistic ways people play this game, with all the different lines and how you can actually think about capping territory. There are helicopters with this. I guess it must be striker helicopter production. barracks for Collier. That's the noise we just heard. And here comes the first strikers for Valithor. And my apologies. There's a gasp right here. I thought for a second there was nothing even close. I'm like, well, how come I thought this was a good starting spot to begin with? So we'll see who gets to use their air better. Certainly Collier has more SAMs right now. I mean, it's 2 for Valithor and surely like what, 6 or even 7 now for Collier. 596 income for Valithor, 500 for Collier. So this is when it can get kind of weird. And like because the economy snowballs really in this game, or that's what it kind of feels like. These commandos, this is a good amount. And I like how they're all grouped up. I mean, this is going to be devastating if they show up on just all this infantry. Certainly enough that Collier is going to have to, send all the strikers and all the helicopters to go deal with that. At the very least, the helicopters. I personally love that there's 2 helicopters in here, because I think even if it's using like 2 helicopters, if you can micro those things and help out with some of your infantry and like effectively use those and not lose them to SAMs, it just is, for one, it looks really cool. And then 2, I think it legitimately is useful. Here's an airstrip from Valithor, so now we're getting first contact in the game. I believe both the airports are almost full for Valithor, so yeah, there's 3 planes on each, so this is the airstrip is at a perfect time. You don't want your airports to fill up with aircraft, because then the airports won't produce anything more. We can look for more production or more development in the rest of the map. Nothing yet. I love this barracks up top from Collier. I mean, it's just, there's so much economy up in the north, and like all of this, and then also this is a very strategic part of the map. It feels like this is a natural choke, and it's in the mountains, so it's a huge defensive position. You generally would want to take that, not have to go through it at some other point. Another barracks, and again, love that. I think that, I mean, infantry with their movement speed, why not? They're the most efficient capping unit in the game. If you have more of them and you can be capping, it's super good. Yeah, here come these helicopters. I mean, 2 helicopters here is actually super nice, as long as they don't get sniped by the commandos and the infantry. 668 income for Collier, 740 for Valithor, so slowly the gap's widening, pardon me. 3rd factory for Valithor, and I really like this because clearly there has to be a plan and a push. Like, that feels pretty good. I mean, if Collier had dropped a bunch of factories and now Valithor just sees, a huge blob of something pushing, you definitely want like a 3rd factory at 8 minutes into the game, potentially. I guess there's something to be said to just like build another factory in the bottom, but I like this. You don't want to get caught off guard. Definitely see the classic like 2 barracks, 1 factory. It's a great like battery of power. It's kind of self-sufficient. With the amount of units you can generate from that, it's just great to have it right here. I mean, this is a great production center for pushing through these mountains. 824 income for Valithor, 728 for Collier. We can see if anyone's developing economically on the rest of the map, which so far is no, which makes a lot of sense. A lot of territory is still up for grabs. Like, these 4 helicopters could do so much. And strikers aren't all that great against helicopters. Like, strikers definitely thrive more shooting ground targets. There is quite a few strikers, so maybe this is just like a numbers game where the strikers are going to be able to take out like a helicopter or 2 without and not lose any without losing any strikers, right? But positioning these SAMs, this is going to be a tough thing. I mean, if Collier can position the SAMs very well, this could be very strong to support infantry through the north here. One of the changes in the patch is that SAMs shoot their missiles 1 square, or like 1 range longer than they did before. So it is a buff to SAMs. SAMs don't do all their damage from the missiles. It's the firecracker machine gun noise that does most of the DPS. But even so, like, last hitting strikers as they get out of there could be huge. With that extra range, we'll see what happens. 3 factories now for the Solstice, and this, or pardon me, Valithor, and this is definitely going to become a push in a second. And I mean, valithor almost has the bottom left. Really, like, this is overtime just going to be capped. So getting aggressive isn't a bad move. I love these helicopters from Collier. Let's see both players gas. So definitely these are being used. I mean, gas-wise, I think both players probably going to be looking for a second gas relatively soon. I don't know if well, we can see. Did valithor have one? No, they're both out of 30. So this is the gas measure. These planes flying, of course, for Collier, burning a bunch of fuel. So I'd assume with 2 airports almost full, and in fact, you know, valithor has an airstrip already. Yeah, here comes the second gas for Collier, and I'd assume valithor's going pretty quick. Probably in the northern one. This is a transport plane, so these commandos, I mean, this is what it's great for. Those commandos in the bottom going to start securing that economy for valithor. Can check the economy, 968 income for valithor, 836 for Collier. So that's actually, I think that's a little bit better than the last check. And these helicopters are really coming in clutch as long as they have enough fuel to fly. But otherwise, I'm just really interested in the rest of the map, because it's like what territories are really up for grabs at this point, right? Like, what are the contested territories? This is a bunch of economy that's going to come into play for valithor. In general, Collier's got everything except for this annoying part down by the mountains, and that's another barracks somewhere. I don't even know where it is, but that's got to be a good move. I'm looking for, okay, yeah, here it is. Here it is in the north. So with 2 SAMs, I mean, 2 SAMs are enough to be annoying to helicopters. Helicopters really don't thrive against SAMs. And here's that range bonus that we were talking about. I mean, losing all these helicopters would be very tough. And this is a lot of commandos in the north for valithor. So, in fact, like, look, so the 2 SAMs, I mean, taking on helicopters one by one, this is tough. They do so much damage to the helicopters. Potentially even 3. I mean, this could actually even be like 4 helicopters that go down. I didn't realize SAMs were actually this strong against helicopters. So it's 2 missiles. Okay, it must be 5 missiles or something. Anyway, we can check on what's going on the bottom. Here comes the artillery. For probably both players. I mean, valithor made a bunch of factories, right? A few minutes ago, so those are going to be coming online. The bottom part of the map, those commanders are starting to make their, you know, make progress. 3 transport ships, so there can be more commando drops. And 3 full airstrips. I mean, this is the way, right? So, like, there's 2 airports, they're constantly pumping strikers and just putting them out into forward air bases. And then at some point, these SAMs are going to be out of position, or even just launching all the strikers up to the north. And there's so many of them, they can just overwhelm like this. Like, if all these planes launched on one SAM group and hit at the same time, they're going to destroy it very quickly. Here's a depot for valithor, especially because this gas isn't used. If you build a depot, it's kind of cool because you just have to change the way, like, instead of constantly moving your planes around and always using gas, you can now, like, pick and choose when you fly the planes. And you can haste them, you have a bunch of reserve gas. Or just in general, if you want to keep flying them, having the reserve gas, it feels like it's not worth the investment, but it super is in the way that you just, like, change the playstyle. Like, these planes are going to be able to start doing so much damage. There's 3 airstrips worth of strikers here. And here they go. I'd expected this gas to be taken for valithor relatively soon. Real quick, 1124 income for valithor, and Collier's caught up. So this is very close. Love that there's factories from Collier in the north, because this is definitely going to start turning into, like, a massing army play. That's the low gas from valithor. The depot, you know, hasn't, like, fully come online or been filled up. But we can see how many strikers there are. And they're all gonna, I mean, how many planes were lost? I wasn't really counting. But for that many SAMs, yo, these 2 are so lucky. It's not bad, because the next time that the planes get launched, they're gonna be able to take out all those SAMs. barracks in the bottom for Valithor. Here's a factory. More beef in the, you know, like in the production for Collier, and I really like it. Especially since this north is getting kind of sketchy. I mean, if we're looking at Collier's view, right? Like this mountain looks very scary, or rather I would be very afraid of it. We could hear the noise. Valithor is starting to eco. These are 2 barracks, just probably for pushing. More mass to go up the center here. It's an interesting spot. I think this could go either way, but I would say the advantage is certainly with Valithor right now. Okay, so there are 3, 4, 5, 6 factories for Valithor. These 3 barracks are going to bring a ton of units forward. I mean, it's 3 old barracks, and here there's a factory from Collier. I like it, you know, I like how aggressive this is. 4 factories. So we said 6 factory for Valithor and 5 on the other side for Collier. So definitely Collier's gonna be outproduced, right? I mean, 3 in the top and 3 factories in the bottom, or 4 factories in the bottom. Pardon me. No, I counted that right. 3 factories in the bottom. I guess it's relatively close. I don't know. This is interesting. These planes, I mean, how they do against these SAMs is a big question. If these planes get bad trades against the SAMs, so 1 goes down. But you know what? I think you take that happily. If you're Collier, because now the next launch you do, there's only 1 SAM potentially that's left. Yeah, maybe even none. Sweet. I mean, I guess like that would work out. That's a very positive development for Collier, I think. I mean, it's so many planes with Valithor too, because this is the moment, right? Like all these SAMs, I mean, these planes could even fly in and start striking stuff right now, because these SAMs are sort of out of position for a dash on the main production. I mean, I don't know what the plan is though. Collier's almost at 1,300 income. Valithor at 1,218, so like this is very close. So let's take big picture here. Collier's got the whole bottom right side. There's no commandos going anywhere. 3rd gas on the way. Still strikers for Collier. I guess some helicopters are happening. I mean, helicopters at this point are hard to juggle just because of the multitask requirement. We can see that Valithor is going to start going for a dedicated push in the top, just rallying a bunch of units to get grouped up. Bottom left, nearly all Valithor, and then 2 commando groups. I mean, this is big, right? This airstrip to move all these transport jets. And this is wide open area, and it's all mountains and forests, and commandos get very slippery through mountains and forests, right? Like, the commandos already have a stealth component to them as a unit, and when they're in mountains and forests, it makes it even more unbearable. I wonder if there's any more economic development. Looking for all these farms and towns and cities to be taken. This is a big mass up, though. I mean, artillery-wise, Collier doesn't have enough artillery pieces in the north. This is kind of big. I mean, this is about as good as a trade as Collier is going to get. I mean, these planes are flying right over the SAMs, and in fact, that's a lot of planes. With the helicopters doing a little bit of damage, that was actually not bad, although with the 4 extra planes, I don't know, that looks good for Collier. I think it is. But even now, I guess maybe Valithor can just like attack, move the SAMs. I mean, it lost a lot of planes, but this is interesting. This is gonna be huge. These commandos in the bottom right for Valithor likely are gonna be enormous. This is a decent push from Collier. Like, if Collier has a grouping, I love this factory. Like, that's a decent amount of power. The northern fight is a huge question. Although with this much artillery, I think Valithor is probably going to be able to pull this off. Like, it's 7 artillery pieces versus 2. And even with all this infantry, the infantry moves quicker now, which is kind of nice because they'll get on top of the artillery a little bit quicker. This is a good defense line. from valithor, because there are, I mean, Collier has the planes, right? So I guess with that many strikers, it's actually a good move. I wonder if Collier could snipe some of those, or could have. I don't know if it was going to be feasible though, because like there's a lot going on. Helicopters in the bottom, if these stay away from the SAMs, it's always just a question, but they look good. 9 range of the SAMs do nothing here. This is definitely going to start pushing backwards. This factory, I love it. It's probably too close though, because if these units, I mean, it might make 1 or 2 units before it gets killed, but especially with all the planes here. Another barracks. This is obviously a very important spot. We kind of talked about it at the beginning of the game. It really shows. Here's a barracks from valithor in the bottom right. That's definitely making commandos. And now just 3 barracks, all pumping out commandos. I mean, we can go look, but it of course is. And the transport jets just constantly reinforcing the bottom right, which over time will become a problem for Collier, especially economically. 1278 income for valithor, 1484 for Collier. So every little bit that goes by that these commandos are able to take this territory, that's income that valithor is getting from Collier, which is, so of course, not only are you getting more income as a player, but you're taking it away from your opponent. So big. Collier is making 242 monies a minute with 330 floating. Not anymore. There's a factory, so just shy of 200 income, and valithor is at about 150. So it's like relatively healthy incomes for both players. This is just battle of attrition on the top, and that's another factory we hear from valithor. Somewhere that's another factory right here, right by that gas. This is a great move. I love this flank, because what this also does is it's going to force valithor to like move units down here. So all this infantry can't now defend here. I think some of the artillery is even going to be pulled. Yeah, so now this part of the push for Collier is able to like fight less units. This artillery is not up here. These artillery aren't. By the time they get up to the main army, they're going to be not in a group anymore. Is really if the SAMs can make sure that they cover all this artillery. See, RD SAM is still very good, but it's just it's not like you don't get there the same way and then use it the same way. In my humble opinion, I like it. I think it's good. More barracks in the top, and barracks are the best production unit in the game right now. That's what it certainly feels like. I love the play. Okay, so here, well now, unfortunately all these units are kind of like doing the cap thing, which totally makes sense. But if they were grouped up, they would have got a little bit better of a trade. Fighting here, that's enough SAMs. They're going to be able to clear out that infantry. This is going Collier's way in the north for sure. Let's see the bottom right question. A lot of infantry and a lot of commandos. I mean, this can't look sweet on Collier's vision. I mean, what are we really seeing? Yeah, I mean, nothing. And commandos just sniping all these units. That's unfortunate. It's frustrating. It's hard to deal with because it's a lot of open space, a lot of mountains. You really gotta have like air with interceptors really to be able to spot the commandos. In the north, this is going well. The south is definitely getting pushed back. Although this is a lot of production buildings, and if Collier can translate this, I guess it's now like 70 economy lead. Unfortunately, I think Collier's on a timer because the bottom right is only going to get worse, and that's going to be very hard to take back potentially. Like, has valithor made anything else? No, so it's all just the barracks still. Does make a lot of sense. These helicopters it's going to be tough, especially when the machine guns start rolling. Whenever you hear the SAMs make the firecracker noise, they're doing more damage than shooting a missile. That's the thing to take away from this. But because the SAMs could shoot the missile further, it's an added bonus. This will be very tough to get through the mountains, and this is something we haven't really seen in this game yet, but is big in this patch, is that defensive lines, the units take 20% less damage against artillery shells. So defensive lines just tend to do better. They have more sustain. They're able to hold out for longer once these units get settled. So this can be very difficult to break. I mean, Collier has more units, and definitely they're going to be on top of this defensive line with the SAMs, which aren't going to do all that well. This might be like not as good of a trade, especially since there are no SAMs close enough to deal with all these strikers. This is great SAM coverage on this push. I mean, if Collier can keep this together and really get on top of production, this could be game-ending damage. It's just again, the bottom right, because all these commandos are about to open up a second front on very critical infrastructure in the forest. Okay, we got a big thing going on here. A lot of SAMs now for Collier showing up. It's still just like a defensive line that's super good though. Let's see how many planes that Collier can get. Maybe one more. Not quite. This is really good. I mean, you can see that there's some line drawn here going on for valithor to try to defend this, because this artillery is very close and there is a lot of SAM coverage. And I love that this is like such a wide flank. I think it's great that there's a second angle here that has to pin all these units. But I mean, it's really a race against time. Like, who's going to be able to get on top of the other's production quick enough? It's a great call. So I mean, I guess all these infantry were able to kill these airstrips. This defensive line is still doing very decent. Collier has more. I mean, if all those units got there, I think Collier would have a bigger blob. It's a good push on the north. It's a good push on the south. Let's see if valithor can defend it. Last check on the income. Collier is now losing money because of all this production. 1,300 income for Collier, 1,566 for valithor. Yeah, I think it's really just this bottom right, and it's gonna be very difficult to deal with. I mean, here come. You have to launch all the strikers to deal with it. And unfortunately for Collier, I think this is just diverted, and then valithor built a factory just in case. Oh, this is very close, but I think valithor is going to start pushing this back. It's a very good push. I wonder, because is there any way that Collier can take all this back? I guess these 3 barracks maybe could outproduce all of this. But there's even 3 barracks on that bottom island for the valithor, so that's going to be able to resupply so much. The infantry in the bottom left are doing a fantastic job. I mean, even like dragging these strikers in here is going to be big, because the SAMs are going to get off great shots. Okay, so that's 1 plane, 2 definitely about to go down. That's the magic number of missiles that it takes. I guess it's 5. It's a good amount of SAMs. I wonder are there still SAMs being made? Yes. Almost like too many SAMs, like more artillery or something. valithor is holding this very well, because valithor is walking this fine line between not building production, right? Like, you want to keep your income high, and as long as you hold stuff so that your production doesn't die, you're actually in great shape. This is kind of concerning, I think, for valithor, but here, I mean, it's very close, but it's definitely a hold. This is slowly going to become a hold. That's another factory for valithor. And where is it? Probably in the north? Yeah, okay, so there it is. So we're going 4 factory up north, all artillery, against 4 factories for Collier, but now, of course, Collier's reinforcements get there. It takes longer for them to arrive. It's the defender's advantage, right? So it's tougher to sustain like one of these like far away from home pushes, especially when if valithor just like measures this correctly and doesn't overbuild barracks or production rather. And then this is obviously huge. I mean, the whole bottom right side of the map valithor's got with commandos. It's hard. These are great scouts. I mean, we can see what valithor is seeing. Clearly see that there's like more units being moved up. Gonna be interesting to see if those commandos can actually get on top of the gas. This is a great push. I think numbers wise, if Collier took this fight, I wonder if they would win, very potentially. I love that the SAMs are just moving to the airport, because then sniping all these planes becomes super easy. Unfortunately, now there's just such a huge blob. And these commandos are going to start picking away stuff. I thought valithor was going to hold on top, and I'm mistaken. This is a lot of artillery. This is so much artillery that these buildings might be in jeopardy. I guess there's not that many planes because these SAMs have done such a great job. So it's not like valithor can even push planes up here. And especially, there's actually there's two SAMs. Yeah, valithor has to back up. There's two groups of SAMs for Collier, so like the strikers wouldn't even be able to push there. Now for Collier, I think it becomes a question of grouping up here and pushing this arty ball back. SAMs are still in a great position. This is now a huge push. This is the right idea, I think, from valithor to go back to the buildings. Just make sure that the buildings don't get destroyed. 5 factory now. 6. I can count 6 factory now. Over time, they're going to be able to deal with this. A defensive line in the north would have been huge. But actually, I don't even know. This is probably still going to work. Yeah, so valithor is going for a counter push. I mean, you can watch the lines and like, you can see what Collier is thinking. Yeah, if these SAMs can really defend this. valithor's on 2 gas, Collier's on 3 gas. Both players have ample enough gas. Collier's doing a good job to start trying to take back this bottom left. These commandos are going to get out of control though, because commandos like that, they just feel like they multiply. So if valithor's already got like the top right of the map, it's kind of tough. SAMs are a little bit out of position, unfortunately. I think these were going to get pushed back anyway. But this is definitely a shot. That's that 9-range missile, and that's the luckiest pilot you've ever seen. 3 artillery pieces against the gazillion. That's not going to really work out. Now it's just that's just our SAM blob from the bottom. This push clearly not going to work in the tug of war of line war. How does this go? 2 airplanes, or 2 airports, pardon me, worth of strikers against like what, 8 commandos and 1 helicopter. Is it 1 pass? No. This is for science. I hope you don't mind that there's a whole game going on. We're watching that. The answer is that pretty much all of them get cleared up. I think all of them are going to get cleaned up really by the time those planes fly around again. valithor's holding in the north. The south is legitimately looking kind of scary, I think, for Collier. Like, this even might need to be a dig-in. And even then, this is definitely going to get on top of these factories. Love this like side stab from Collier. Again, like, diverts a lot of units and potentially could do damage. These SAMs are now in a great position. Unfortunately, the artillery, there's just so much of it. And in the bottom right, where I think the whole game, the fate of the game hinges, right side of the map is now valithor's, and I think this is just going to get harder and harder. It's a lot of economy. These 2 SAMs are now just kind of stuck, which they're in a great position for these planes. They're just not for like these artillery pieces are going to start pushing. And this is definitely a push for valithor. Collier, unfortunately, I mean, a nuke wouldn't really help here because there's not like too much of a blob in anyone plays, maybe in the north. But obviously, income-wise, it doesn't really make sense. We can check again. 1160 for Collier and 1698 for valithor. I mean, still, this whole bottom right side and then all the way up here is now being capped. And I think now we're just seeing the results of the number of production facilities. I mean, there's 5 factories here. There's 6 over here. So it's like 13 factory or something against, I mean, what, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I probably didn't even count that right. But if it is a discrepancy of 3, that is quite large. right? Like over time, the way how quick these armies are moving. If it's just pumping artillery and SAMs, 3 factories over time is going to be a lot more. This is a brave fight back, but this is a lot of units. I mean, it's 3 transport jets that can actually just continuously ferry units here. So that alone is a lot of reinforcements. Yeah, this is a lot of units. This is slowly crumbling. One heck of a game, though. Neither player has really econned because it has been quite like a back and forth battle. I mean, territory is constantly switching hands. It has been close. Certainly, I think Collier was threatening on the north and threatening in the south. That run by was huge. I mean, it killed all the planes. Very intense. I really think it's just that this bottom right, these commandos have opened it all up for valithor, and most importantly, taking a bunch of economy away from Collier. Like, how does this go? This is a good amount of infantry, but all of this, I mean, these commandos are kind of derping out, but I think over time, maybe that barracks will die. Yeah, this is a good dig-in. I mean, it's a good dig-in, but unfortunately, it's like now Collier has less income than valithor. I mean, it's like one of those situations like, what are you supposed to do? Not dig in and just try to fight? Well, no, not really. But the longer that this goes on, the more money valithor makes. I don't know. You be the judge of what happens here. How many is this? Like 9 commandos? Commandos generally do twice as much damage as an infantry, but have half as much health, or something like that. It's some like 50-50 thing. No, the commandos are definitely gonna win. They have like cool sounding guns. Come on, they got the cool sounding guns. So clearly, that many strikers are going to be able to clean up this many commandos, but this is a death by 1,000 cuts at this point. I mean, commandos are at the top right. They're going to start looping around and poking at stuff. This can hold out for a while. I mean, this much entrenchment. And entrenched units gain range. So these artillery pieces actually have more range than these artillery pieces. I'm kind of surprised this one. Yeah, okay, so now this one can start shooting. I mean, these... We'll see how long this can hold out. There's unfortunately no nuke for Collier or anything that's going to be able to stop this entire blob. Just like jetting between vision. Yeah, so all these commandos were able to clean it up. I mean, it's still 3 transport jets. Reinforcing. This is a huge dig-in. This is a lot of artillery. And surely at this point, does valithor go for more airports? It's still 2 airport. Well, I think really this bottom right is telling. I mean, this is a lot of income. That's another barracks. Definitely bottom right. It's gotta be someone. Oh yeah, okay. So a barracks for valithor in the back right of the map. Presumably that'll go for commandos. I think this is very well played by both players. This is high-level line war. Welcome to it, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I did. Yeah, I mean, this looks funny, but over time, numbers-wise, it's probably just going to be valithor. I mean, what's the income? Yeah, I mean, Collier's now run out of any income just because of all this economy that valithor's just stolen, like even up into the top right. I mean, that's really tough. That's an enormous amount of the income that Collier has. Even these back trade routes wouldn't have been safe to like compensate for losing all that territory, just because the commandos are already there. This is a very oppressive push. Yeah, this is just the big island top. Transport jets look so cool. That's all you gotta say. The artillery is slowly making its way through this one. Over time, this defensive line in the mountains will fall. And really, I think this is what what sealed the game. End of match. I was wondering, why is this plane flying in circles? Thank you for hanging out. GG's. Valithor and Collier, props. Thank you to Valithor for posting this in the Discord in match replays. Of course, if you want to learn more about the game or come hang out or chat about it at all, please join the Discord. There are folks there who would be happy to chat or help or whatever. Yeah, enjoy your night, day, evening, whatever it is. We'll see you around. What's up? Peace.